Hello, welcome to the book review talking about show. Um,
Cousins talk about books or
Cousins talk about
whatever.
books or something. I'm Danny, and that's the other one, Josh.
That's me.
Um, this time we read Wool by Hugh Howey. I got the American cover, you got the British cover, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
And this is based on, or the series Silo on
Mhm.
Apple, as you can see from the little sticker that you can't take off,
I
is
managed to get one that didn't have that. I'm
oh,
so pleased.
that's amazing. I heard I feel like I've heard somewhere that there's like a company that makes stickers that fill in that little gap that so that you could put it over top of the like now a TV
Oh,
show or now a
I
movie or
bet
whatever.
collectors love that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll see if I can find them because that
that's
sounds
very cool.
very cool.
This whole video is actually just an excuse to let people know about that company.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Because yeah, it looks like I hate that because it looks like it's a sticker and it's not. It's just printed
no.
on. It's so annoying.
It really
Um,
is. On the one
Anyways,
hand, as somebody who works in the book selling side of things, on the retail
yeah.
side, I'm really pleased not to have to manually put stickers
Oh, that's
on
over
all
top
of the
of
books on
over top
top
of
of
people's
everything else
art.
that you'd have to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
On the other hand, as somebody who consumes books and as somebody who sells books to people who fucking hate it,
Yeah.
you know, stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bet it does fucking sell more books though, like that people are like, "Oh, this is the one from the movie I wanted to watch or whatever."
They
Like
wouldn't do it if
they
they,
wouldn't do it
yeah.
if it didn't. Yeah. So I
Well, and
I
every
understand
once in
it
a
from a
while,
marketing thing, but I also hate it. So
yeah. And every once in a while, one exception to the rule that I will say, every
Mhm.
once in a while, it does help readers to connect movies to books that don't have the same title.
Right.
Um,
Yes, which is this is one of those cases where the first book at
yes.
least is called the series is called Silo, but the first book is
Mhm.
called Wool. Um,
At least on your edition, the Silo series is like
yes, is
written
written
over
on
top.
it. So it's like that's what this is. Yeah. Yours
This
does
one,
not.
even though I like the cover a lot,
Yeah, I
it
like
does
that
not
cover too.
have that. On the
Mhm.
back, it says first book in the internationally best-selling Silo trilogy, but it
Right.
doesn't. Yeah.
Mhm.
One example that I've seen recently is a book called Mickey 7 is being adapted.
Okay. Is
Um,
that Mickey 17 is the movie?
yes.
Yeah, okay. So there you go.
Who knows why they decided to add,
That's not
you
enough
know,
Mickeys. We
not
need
enough
more
Mickeys.
Mickeys.
So the little sticker goes, it's being released as a movie that's it's almost the same, but this is the
Yeah.
right book if
Yeah.
you want
Yeah,
to.
you don't have, this isn't like a
A
prequel
prequel, yeah.
to or something.
First there was Mickey 7,
Mhm.
then there
Yeah,
was Mickey 17.
that's a Bong Joon-ho movie, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it looks
Um,
interesting.
mhm. Anyways, we're off track. Way off topic. Um, so Silo is the series. I've heard good things about it. I was curious about it, and this is the first book of that series called Wool. And I saw a couple of reviews that were like, "There's no wool in this book. Why is it called
That's
that?"
not true. That's not true.
That's not true. There's a little bit of wool.
There's a little bit of wool.
There's not a lot.
No, I thought after the first reference to wool, I'd be like, oh, okay, there'll be like one every part or so. No,
Yeah,
just the first one. But
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, the
the,
concept is well, the title is that it's like it's pulling the wool down over your eyes.
yes, yes.
It's about deception and illusions, and about questioning why things are the way they are. Like that's kind of a
Indeed.
big theme. It's a thematic metaphor. It's not a literal like, oh, this is a book about sheep. So, no, it's a metaphor. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so we'll go a little bit, I think, in to just kind of talking about the general premise and some of the
Mhm.
non-spoiler stuff, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into spoilers later into the review, a little bit deeper into the deep down as we talk about this book. Uh yeah, did you read any of mine has like a little afterword by the author that goes into some of the like he goes into talking about like why he came up with how he came up with the idea and stuff because it started as a short story and then I don't know if you
Interesting.
did you have that at all in your copy?
No, mine has the prologue to Shift,
Okay, which is the
but
next book.
it doesn't actually have that.
Okay. I
Mhm.
th I'll just mention it briefly because I thought it was interesting. Yeah, it started out as a short story, which was just the first part.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and he put that out just on like digital like platforms
Yeah.
and people and it took off for whatever reason and people were like, "Where's the rest of it?" And he was like, "That's it. It's just a short and it's sad and that's the end of it." And but there was enough people asking for more that he's like, well, maybe I could do a little more. So then he fleshed it out into a full thing and released each part like as they came out, sort of thing, and then collected it all in a full novel when that was all together. So that kind of uh makes sense to me because it the first part feels a little bit like a short story. It's about
Yeah.
this yeah, so I guess the premise, I guess going into the premise a little bit. It's so it takes place in this silo, this and it's this post-apocalyptic sci-fi kind of situation where there's this whole society living in this silo deep underground, and certain characters start to question, why do we live in a silo? What's the rest of the world like? Why are we not allowed outside? What is outside? And all these kind of things. And they start questioning why their society is the way it is, and
Yeah.
we find out there are various sinister forces uh, controlling different things, and there's a lot of really cool reveals and
Yeah.
twists and turns, and everything gets deeper and deeper, and the world building is very, very well done. I like
Yes.
how it starts out with just like a couple characters and then we just slowly meet more characters and the world becomes more and more realized as the story progresses.
It's very organic and
Yes.
um the how well fleshed out the extra characters we meet are and how consistently we meet more and more of them helps with the feeling like it feels clear from the beginning of the story that the world is as fleshed out as that, and then you are affirmed in that as you
Yeah.
go on and on and on. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but the first part starts with and it's this like kind of beautiful little short story of um the sheriff of
Mhm.
the silo deciding that he wants to go outside, and we find out that that means that he wants to kill himself basically because it's a way that they execute people as they it's called cleaning. They send
Mhm.
them outside of the silo, and the air is supposedly toxic out there, and so you only last a few minutes, and it just gets crazier from there. I don't even know like where to go because like every it feels like every like few chapters we get like a crazy reveal about like more of
Yeah.
what's actually going on. So it feels difficult to talk about without like going into spoiling too much because they tell you a lot like right away,
Yeah, they do.
and then
Um,
we find out more and more about like why things are the way they are as it goes.
yes. I suppose
Yeah. What do you think?
it's it's a really difficult one to talk about because even
Yeah.
in that first short story segment at the beginning, which is like the
Mhm.
first sort of the opening stinger, if you will,
Yeah.
there are it does more work talking about and exploring this idea of the silo and the different possibilities of what could be going on and the mentality of the mind state of the people who live there and what their theories are than most other media that deal with this kind of thing do in their entire run.
Yeah.
So in the first 50 pages, we already have two or three reveals and an extraordinary amount of work done to put us in the headspace of the people in the silo.
Yeah.
Um, and it feels wrong to reveal what happens even within those 50 pages because
Yeah.
they are so impactful and shocking in and of themselves. Um, I certainly would not have wanted that spoiled for me going
Yeah.
in. Um,
Yeah.
but what I will say is, I think doing a little bit more of a general sort of a sense of what the story is for
Mhm.
people, um, is uh yeah, I mean you did a good job of like painting the tone and the picture of the thing. Um, but we follow a few characters who travel through and inhabit different layers or areas of this very, very deep silo that is
Mhm.
self-contained,
Yeah.
self-sustaining, and has a very strict social structure to it, um, that
Mhm.
is designed to keep people in the silo, understandably,
Yeah.
because it is dangerous to go outside, and there is a human instinct to want to get out of the
Yeah.
silo, even though they can't do that, and it means death, um, to do that. And people will justify in all kinds of ways that desire or the counter desire um and, and for reasons, beneficial or nefarious, uh, the systems in place to keep people in the silo
Mhm.
are so much more complicated than the people in those systems realize it is. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
and so a lot of reveals happen discovering the extent to which the society is designed to keep everybody uh,
Mhm.
safe, to keep
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
doing their thing in the
Mhm.
silo.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think it's very well um very well done because it we do find out like, oh, certain people are lying about why
mhm,
things are the way they are, but then we also do kind of see their side of things and like,
absolutely.
okay, uh, now I'm like I'm almost completely pulled over to their side of like, or at least I understand their perspective of like
Mhm,
why they lie about certain things. It's like because the world is dangerous outside,
mhm.
and this we know that this system keeps humanity alive,
Yes, it is a
and
proven
it's a
success.
proven success. We've survived seemingly many generations, seemingly probably
Mhm.
hundreds of years at this point. I can't remember if they say how long it's been, but it's
Hundreds
been,
of years is what they
yeah,
say.
yeah, that sounds right. And so if we disrupt that, it things everything could fall apart.
Yes.
So that's a big part of like why we have a very, very structured system. And it's like we don't
Mhm.
want to fuck with that because it could end
Yeah.
it could end everything. We know that this works, and
Uh-huh.
yes, there are like I can't remember. There's a line later in the book that I thought was really great. It's like either we all suffer or we all die or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, damn, that's 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 a fair point. Um, so it's really, really interesting. And there's like one character who is starting to find out like why things are the way they are, and
Yes.
then as he does, he it's like there's this tension of like maybe he's going to comply to everything because he's starting to realize like, oh, maybe they're right to keep all these systems in place, even though there are a lot of like fucked up elements of it. It's really, really engaging. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff about um history and
Hmm.
humanity's tension to destroy itself, humanity's like need to have revolutions, and then they either fail and things go back to the way they were, or they succeed, but then things eventually fall apart again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really, really well thought out world building and
Absolutely.
stuff. It's very, very well done book. I liked it a lot.
It is,
Yeah.
and yeah, absolutely. That is where I stand on it. Is
Mhm.
that I had a great time with the book.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing I wanted to praise the book for generally, before we get into spoilers, is the choice of protagonist, because
Mhm.
the book starts from the perspective of the sheriff, but it does move to a
Yeah.
couple of other characters before settling on our protagonist for most of the book.
Yeah.
And she is obviously the protagonist of Silo, played by
Yeah.
uh,
Rebecca Ferguson,
Rebecca
who's
Ferguson.
great. I love
Um,
her. I'm excited to see the show. We should
Me
do
too.
another episode after watching the show because I think that would be fun.
I I was gonna say that would be
Yeah.
great.
Okay. Cool.
Um, but what a great choice of protagonist, because
Yes.
uh, she is as invested as anybody else in
Mhm.
the success of the silo.
Yes.
And in some ways more so. Not necessarily right, but uh, we see we've sort of talked about the people who are running things and
Mhm.
why they keep things, like, even though it's a bit fucked up, you see why they're doing what they're doing, and you do totally get that. But there's a really interesting mix. Um, it's very, very well structured, where he's got those characters who
Mhm.
ostensibly take the long view and uh, you know, aren't nice. Uh, it's like assholes, but you see
Yeah.
why they're doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, you also see that they are quite short-sighted in a lot of other ways. Like,
Yes.
um, one particular character is so concerned with his immediate surroundings and making his sort of department work, that he's ignoring the fact that some of the mechanical stuff of the silo is actually breaking down,
Yeah.
um,
And it's like
which
the
is bad.
engine.
They could, yeah,
It's like the
the
engine
power
that literally
generator.
keeps the entire power of the whole thing intact. And it's like,
Um,
yeah. So.
so and our
Mhm.
heroine,
Mhm.
Juliet,
Mhm.
is not an asshole and
No.
doesn't believe in doing morally bad things in order to
Mhm.
keep the silo going, but is paying attention. Is like, hey, we need to do a retrofit of this power generator if we want it to last another 100 years, and we
Mhm.
should want it to last another 100 years, or
Yeah.
we'll all die.
Yeah.
And having to fight her corner on that,
Mhm.
which is where we start with her. So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting dynamic to have characters looking at different long views and being equally invested, and then being sort of against one another in the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Really
It's
well done.
it's very cool. Yeah, and I thought she was a great protagonist. Almost immediately likable, and we get to know her more as things go, and uh very resourceful, very competent in a lot of ways. And yeah, and then she goes in all kinds of different directions that I could not have predicted. So it's great.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is, and I really appreciated this, is a large part of what gets her through the plot of the book is community.
Yes,
Um,
yes, 100%.
and that is a space where she and the antagonists differ
Hmm.
immensely, right? On her own, she would not be a match for the forces that be, but she
Hmm.
has these fantastic connections with everybody who knows her,
Yeah.
and everybody who meets her
Hmm.
is impressed with her, including some of the people we follow before we get to her.
Hmm.
Um, and that sense of community is also like a really big part of the story. It's a really big theme. It's like there's an element to social order that is control, and then there's another part of it which is everybody's got to look after each other.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, I thought that was woven throughout very, very effectively, and culminates very, very well. It's just a very good
Yeah,
book.
it's just really well told and very well structured.
Yeah,
Good job, Hugh.
good
You.
job, Hugh. Um,
Yeah, I don't
do
know
you
what
have
it,
any nitpicks?
not a lot. Um, No.
I have
Not
one.
really. Okay, go for it. Because like the only thing I could think of is that like sometimes I wasn't as engaged as other parts of reading it, but I'm like that's not really a
That's
nitpick.
true of anything.
That's true of anything. So yeah.
Uh, um, I definitely had it that I was engaged. I thought it was really, really good. I got to a certain point in the story where it really hooked me, and I
Mm.
needed to get to the end. Um, so there was like, oh, I'm in. Oh, I'm in. All
Mhm.
right, I'm in.
Mhm.
Oh, I need to be in.
Yeah.
It was like 50, 60% of the way through that I was like, ah, I need to know. Um,
Mhm.
but my one nitpick is
Mhm.
that dialogue is not Hugh Howey's strong suit. Um,
I think
the
that's fair.
writing wise. The actual like character work is so exquisite and the world building
Mhm.
is so good that it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter at all. But every once in a while, a character will open their mouth and say something, and I went, "That's not how people talk, though."
That's fair. Yeah.
Truly,
Yeah.
every once in a while, it was usually fine.
Yeah. I was not usually bothered by the dialogue. I thought it
No, it
was
didn't.
passable, and the rest of the character stuff I thought was really, really solid. So
Yeah.
it didn't that didn't bother me, but that's fair. That's fair.
I have sort of a an inability not to be hypercritical of
Mhm.
writing and all
No,
this stuff.
that's
Um, not a bad thing by any means. Like
no.
I'm this is such an achievement that I'm like who gives a damn if every
Yeah.
once in a while when somebody opens their mouth it sounds like a sermon instead of like but
Yeah.
it was like one or two times that I would
Mhm.
noticed it enough to be like I'm just gonna make a note of that for
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
But it was fine. It was absolutely
Mhm.
fine. And served the story just fine anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's allowed. Uh
Oh, good. I'm glad. I was
yeah.
worried.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we go a little bit deeper into spoilers? Because there's a few reveals I
If
definitely want to get into a little bit.
if any of the people watching this um are going to leave at this point,
Mhm.
um the one thing I will say is and one more thing to get you hooked is if you like uh Fallout.
Yes.
There are a lot of parallel tracks that the story goes down and it does very, very
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah,
if you are a
absolutely.
fan of Fallout, more the TV show than the video games, but
Mhm.
either or, then I do recommend this book for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I just watched the show recently and I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of similar to this and that. So, um yeah, definitely if you're into that kind of vibe. Although it's a different vibe, like it's a different tone because Fallout's a little bit more satirical.
Yes.
But the similar elements of the world building and the like post-apocalyptic stuff
Yeah.
is definitely in there. Uh and yeah, you got people in a vault, people in a silo.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar stuff
It's
there.
yeah, it sounds obvious when you go, they're
Yeah.
both in vaults.
Yeah, right.
They're both in silos.
Yeah.
Of course they would deal with similar stuff. And yes, there is a tone difference, but um I think because there is a tone difference, you'll get a little bit more of a full rounded exploration of the ideas in their totality. And one
Mm,
side being dark but humorous, and the other side being dark but earnest and
mhm.
even potentially a little bit hopeful.
Yeah.
Um, it's yeah, I, I love the Fallout show. I thought it was really really good,
Yeah, I
and
thought it
I
was
was
great.
like, oh, I'm really glad to have both of these
Oh, for sure.
things. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's it. Shall we spoil the heck out of this thing?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I don't know. Where do you want to start? There's like a reveal like
There are so
every
many
100
reveals.
pages. There's like a crazy reveal.
The one thing I think I'd like to start at the beginning
Yeah, yeah.
because it becomes it's a really really interesting idea and it's really strong for the first short story beginning of it.
Yeah.
Um, to have spoilers, there's a screen built into hazmat suits
Yes. Yeah, so
that
when they get
makes the
cleaned, they get
yeah
sent out into the outside in this like hazmat suit that's we're told is designed to potentially protect them from any radiation or any harmful whatever is out there.
At least for a time.
at least for a little bit. But yeah, we find out, sorry, go ahead, that there's a screen on the thing. Um,
Yes, so when the person goes outside, there's a mystery in that initial
mhm,
short story, which is that everybody who goes outside goes and cleans the sensors, the cameras that show the images of the outside of the desolate landscape.
mhm,
And there have been people throughout time who go, "No, of course I won't do that. I'm not going to do the cleaning. F you."
mhm,
But then they all do it, and nobody knows why they do it. And then
yeah.
we get the reveal because somebody goes out to clean that when they go outside, they see that it's beautiful outside, that
Mhm.
it's
Oh,
greenery and full of
yeah,
life,
blue.
and there are birds and blue skies
Yeah,
uh,
looks
and
great.
and there's sort of this strange sense of euphoria, this psychological thing happens to people, and they go and they clean, and almost like, look how beautiful it is.
Yeah, there must be something
Um,
wrong with the cameras because they're not
mm,
showing what it's actually like outside. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And then of course, that's not true, and
Mhm.
the people do succumb uh, either to oxygen deprivation because the
Yeah,
suits do
this.
not have an oxygen supply in them,
Mhm.
or to the toxins outside, which are real.
Yeah.
They are actually real, and that was a really interesting
Mhm.
um, reveal in and of itself because there's so much theorizing about whether or not,
Right. Yeah.
like,
At first, there. That's part of it. Is like, is there actually anything
out
wrong with
there. Yeah.
outside? Because if, um, yeah, because our guy Holston, who's the sheriff initially, his wife was like looking into the history of certain things. She was asking too many questions about
Mm.
why things are the way they are, and she eventually is decides to go out and cleans, and he out of partly out of just depression and missing his wife, is like, fuck it, I'm gonna kill myself essentially. Um, but also
But
partly because he's thinking maybe she was onto something.
well, and
Be-
maybe she didn't die.
and maybe, yeah, maybe she's out there somewhere.
Because she went out um believing
Mhm.
that it was fine out there and that she
Yeah.
would go out and she would be able to make it and come back for her husband.
Hmm.
Um and he sort of waited and waited and she didn't come, and he went, well, I might die, but also I might be able to go join her. Maybe things are okay out there.
Yeah,
And there's
maybe
some
there's
other
this.
reason that she hasn't made it back. Um
Hmm.
which is brutal.
Yeah,
That kind of hope is just killer.
yeah, it's yeah, yeah, and like such a um crazy. It's, yeah, it feels like a double reveal where it's like
It does.
because he goes out and then everything looks great and you're like, oh shit, everything is okay, and then it's
Yeah.
like, no. Yeah,
No,
which
and
is such
no,
a, it's so dark too because it's like,
it's
oh,
so dark.
we give you a little bit of hope before you die, and then no, it's actually terrible outside, and
And all to clean the cameras. Like, and
yeah,
it makes total sense in the context of the story. You need for people to be able to see that things are bad, right?
yeah,
Because if the cameras get too cloudy, then people will go, well, things are great out there. You don't
yeah,
know, you
who
can't
knows?
see.
Yeah.
Um, right? And what, she's the woman, Holston's wife was investigating, and she found programming to make essentially like CGI art
Mhm.
to
Yeah,
make a false image, and thought, oh, of course they must be showing us something that's not true
right.
on the on
Yeah,
the
on the
cameras.
main
But
outside
no,
view.
it's
No,
all
it's
designed for the
all,
people who go outside.
yeah. Uh.
Yeah. It's really rough. And I will tell you, I thought that this was going to be a much more depressing read than it
Mhm.
was based on those first 50 pages.
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh
Yeah, well, that
man.
was as like in the author's notes in the back, he was talking about like I think his dog just died and he was just
Oh
feeling
God.
kind of depressed, and so he was just like, yeah, I just wrote something. Sometimes life is just shitty and fuck you, and that's it. And then people
Oh.
responded like, but where's the rest of it? Like, I want to know more about the silo and what happens next with all the other characters and like what's going on. And
Mm.
so he kept writing more, and as he wrote more, he did kind of changed his mind and decided it was going to ultimately be more of a hopeful story, because then it does become
Hmm.
more of a story about hope in the face of uh incredibly
Well, I will
terrible
say
circumstance,
I'm glad that he sprinkled a little hope
Oh,
in there
totally.
because it is even with the hope in, even with that sort of direction for it, it is very dark.
Oh yeah, there's a ton
Uh,
of dark stuff in it. So then the main story is about Juliet gets recruited to become uh the next sheriff, because I now need a sheriff.
mhm.
Um and she quickly starts discovering, well, why did the last guy die actually? And oh, he was
Yeah,
looking into some interesting things, and his wife was looking into some interesting things. And then very quickly they're like, you're asking too many questions. We're gonna send you out. And it gets like crazier from there. I don't even know like where to go. One of the things I wanted to mention before I forget, I thought it was really, really interesting that a lot of the people controlling what's really like who knew about what was really going on with the silo and who were involved in
hmm.
everything were the IT department. And
Yes.
part of that is because they are the ones who control information. They
Yep.
control people. There's like a system that you can send messages between people, and you can send like essentially emails or texts between different levels and stuff, but it costs a little bit of extra money.
Yeah.
So people don't do it as often. And that's a very easy way for them to keep people from organizing too easily. And asking too many questions between different departments and different parts of the silo. And I
Hmm.
thought that was very well thought out and very smart, and feels unfortunately a lot like real life right now, where a
Yeah.
lot of the big peoples that control Twitter and Facebook
Yeah.
and Google are also uh not good. um and yeah, if you can control the media and the information, yeah, that does a lot in controlling the population. So
Yeah, it does.
it's there's a
It-
lot of stuff in this where I'm like, oh yeah, that's true to real life. Cool.
yeah. It's so interesting. There's absolutely that element to it in terms of
Mhm.
like digital information dissemination.
Mhm.
But there's also a lot of uh emphasis put on like physical distance between things.
Yeah.
Like the floors are not simple to travel between. Like it
No, it
takes quite a
takes
lot of effort
yeah,
and time.
yeah.
You know, it takes
It
days
takes
to
days
descend and descend.
to go all the way through. Yeah.
And so there's an element even of that of less like, hey, these communities are separated by literal physical distance, and we know from real world, we know that like, hey, these two villages are 10 miles apart, but that's enough, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
you know, that there's a little crossover, but not necessarily very much, and you can have, you know, 100 villages all very close together and all with very different cultures and stuff, and it feels very much like that. And IT has not only done what you said, but they have also placed themselves physically as far away from the law on either side of themselves as possible. And I thought that was an interesting little tidbit that
Mm.
our character like notices um, as just another thing that they've done to help keep themselves as under the radar as possible. It's just um, yeah,
Yeah, totally.
there are sort of three main sections of the silo. And
Hmm.
usually the sheriff's office is in the middle to be able to respond. There are three sheriff's offices, but the one at the top, in the top section, is just at the very top. And then
Yeah.
IT is down here in the middle. So,
Right. Yeah.
and they're like, oh, we're far away from these guys. We're also far away from these guys.
Hmm.
And nobody notices except for a couple of people.
Hmm. Yeah, so I feel like there's kind of two major reveals that I want to talk about briefly
Yeah.
um after, which is one, eventually Juliet finds out too much and they send her out to cleaning, and where she ends up going. And then the second one being like why the silos were built in the first place, which was
Yeah,
also very cool. Um,
it's all really well
so
done.
yeah, it's all very well thought out. And yeah, there was a so firstly, they Juliet finds out too much basically, and they send her out to cleaning. Um, but she has some friends in her mechanical department that she's from, and they have some friends in supply who managed to get her a suit, a what's it called, a hazmat suit that
Yeah,
is actually functional because they are all designed to fail. Um, uh,
yeah.
so hers is designed is actually made properly, and so she's actually afforded a little bit more time. And she's found out,
Yes.
and secondly, she's found out that the visor is bullshit, so she doesn't like freak out. Well, like she knows she's it's still disorienting to her, but she knows it's gonna be not true what it shows her. So she
I
basically just starts like booking it as soon as like she gets out.
I have to say
Yeah.
the couple of things that are so satisfying about that
Mhm.
moment is there. It's been quite a lot of build up to this point,
Mhm.
and the the perspective of the bad guys when
Mhm.
they find out that she's not cleaning
Yeah.
is so satisfying.
Yeah.
Just like how freaked out and
Yeah.
apoplectic they are
So like, what do
that
you
she's
mean?
not like, what do you mean she's not doing it? Everybody
Yeah.
does it.
Yeah.
And everybody in the silo is electrified by that. But
Yeah.
the other thing that's really satisfying is that she knows that what she's seeing is bullshit, and
Yeah.
that allows her to notice things that Holston didn't notice. Like
Mhm.
there are no sounds of birds, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
she can feel the toxic dust hitting her hazmat suit every
Mhm.
once in a while. There are things like subtle things that you wouldn't notice if you were caught up in the ecstasy of it all.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, these details are so. It was so nice that he thought to include those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Like, it's like it's a very hoorah moment,
Mhm. Yeah,
for
because
her not
and
to do the
and she's
thing.
not planning on surviving at that point either.
No,
She's just
yeah,
like, maybe if I get, because there's like a bit of a hill that they can kind of see, but they can't see what's past that. And she's like, maybe if I can get past that hill, then people will see that like, oh, that's weird. Nobody's ever done that. Like,
yeah,
what else is wrong about our society? So that's her only goal at that point. Um,
yeah.
and that's enough to like start for people to start asking questions, and that leads to a whole basically that leads to a whole revolution of like um which
It's really interesting. If Juliet had not come back into the story,
mhm,
there is a chance that that on its own would have toppled the government in the silo.
yeah.
There are a couple of things that she does affect, which and those things are interesting,
Mhm,
and and I think if we take things very literally the way that they happen in the book, um, the bad guys would have kept control over the silo, uh,
yeah.
just
Yeah, but like
from
just
her,
barely.
but just barely.
Mhm. Yeah, the main thing that I think is cool is that we find out Juliet does make it over the hill, and what she
Yes.
finds is another silo, and it's incredible. And then there's this like it's such a great like cliffhanger end of chapter moment where the main bad guy's like, silo 1, this is silo 18, we have a problem. And you're like, oh shit, there's like a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And we find out that there's I think 50, or there was
Yes.
50, but a few
Three
of
have
them,
gone dark.
three have gone dawn, have fallen. Um,
And
and
very recently, which is very lucky for our protagonist.
yeah,
Um,
and that's
which is yeah,
the one that she ends up in.
yes.
And but there's one guy left in it, and so she ends up befriending him and trying to figure out a way to save that silo if she could contact the main silo that she's from, all this crazy stuff. And then the last reveal that I wanted to talk about because I think it's so smart and so well thought out and makes so much sense when you think about it, is like why the silos were built. um Juliet befriends this guy who's like an astronomer and stuff, and he ends up getting trained by the IT people to like find
Take
out like
over.
why to take over, because why, and to learn why things are the way they are. And he starts asking questions about like, okay, well, like why were these silos built in the first place? It's like well, they thought that humanity might destroy itself. It's like, okay, well, why would you build it so like it's like they thought of everything. It's almost as if they knew that humanity was going to destroy itself. It's like, well, why would they know that humanity just unless they were the ones who did it? And it's like, oh fuck. It's such a good
Yeah.
reveal. There's a similar-ish reveal, kind of spoilers, I guess, in the Fallout show,
Yeah.
which I think is also really, really clever.
It's
Um,
fantastic.
but yeah, it's again, it's about like thinking about systems and why
Mhm.
systems are in place, and asking who is the one that would benefit from such a system? Who would
Yeah.
benefit from people only existing in a silo? And how would you know that the world was going to end unless you were involved in causing that to happen in the first place? Oh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
dark.
Really, really dark. Really dark. A very satisfying reveal when it happens.
Yeah.
Um, and emotionally complicated for the people who are surviving, because even the people
Yeah.
who know that that was the reason that it happened don't necessarily agree with the decision to destroy
Yeah.
the world, right?
No.
But they're stuck. They're
But
stuck in this situation where if they don't keep it going, everyone's gonna die.
yeah.
So they have to keep this plan going that was made by people who destroyed the world. Even if they
Yeah.
they were like, it's totally morally reprehensible to destroy the world, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep your vision going because if I don't, everyone will die.
Yeah.
Uh, really fantastic,
Mhm.
fantastic writing, and the difference between the main sort of villain of this book and the guy who's being trained up,
Mhm.
that guy sort of goes, you know, has justified
Mhm.
continuing on this legacy, um, by saying to himself, "I if I had them here, I'd kill them,
Yeah.
but there's no other choice." And then the guy here, uh,
Mhm.
and the guy who's being trained up is like, but we are continuing their work. Like we are them. We
Yeah.
are them still.
Yeah.
Like how can you
Yeah.
not see that just is wrong still?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's really, yeah, like he has a moment where he's like, we blew up the world, and then the guy who's training him is like, no, 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 they blew up the world. We're that's not us. Don't put that on us. I didn't want to
yeah.
do that. He's like, yeah, but we're them still. We're
We
like
are them.
we're just a few generations removed from them, but it's
And both
still
are
us.
valid.
Yeah.
Both are absolutely valid points. And it's
Yeah.
really, really satisfying
Yeah.
to have
That de
that sort of,
that
yeah.
debate. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah. Um, any final thoughts? Because I have to run, unfortunately.
Uh no, I think that's basically all I wanted to gush about, other than like I could go more in depth with different characters and stuff, but that's the main things I wanted to talk about. Mostly, I really, really liked the book, and I'm excited. I'll probably keep reading as well the next couple books, but I also
I
want
was
to,
thinking too, yeah.
at some point. I have a lot of books that I want to read also, but eventually it's on the list, uh, of stuff to get to, and I do want to check out the show as well. But mostly, I just really liked it, and I thought it was very well done. Good book.
Good
Did you have any
book.
other final thoughts?
No, that's it. Absolutely the same thing. I want to read the sequels. I want to watch the show. I
Yeah.
know we intend to watch the show, and then we'll
Yes, we'll
talk
talk
about
about
that
that for
and
sure.
talk about it in adaptation because that's something that we
Yeah.
talk about just ourselves all the time.
Yeah. I think that'll be
Uh,
a fun discussion for sure.
for sure.
Because I'm
And
very
then
curious to see how they adapt it.
same.
Um,
And we will figure out what we'll read next as well.
yeah.
Um, and
Leave a
then
comment of what we should
leave
read
a
next.
comment
I
in
don't
the
know.
video.
Please like and
Probably
subscribe and all those things.
do it.
Um,
Uh, yes. to plug this guy, you're on his channel right now. You're watching his videos. Is
Mhm.
fantastic. He's doing Franken Fridays every other weekend,
Yes.
a week. So watch those because Frankenstein's one of my favorite things. It's awesome. And to plug
Yeah.
my stuff,
Yeah.
I'm in a production, a live theater production of Frankenstein that's on from March 12th to the 22nd in Winchester in the UK. So if you happen to be in the area, find me my social media stuff, and you can find
Mhm.
tickets to come see it. It's
Amazing.
going to be a great performance.
Oh, it sure is. I'm excited. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be there at one of
And
them.
you're gonna be there.
It's gonna be great.
Uh,
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description for all that stuff. And that's it for this episode, I think. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for
Bye
watching.
bye.
Bye.